Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. Doing JMA Friday as always on a Friday, having a look at where the month ahead. This just about takes us to September, so we almost get to the beginning of meteorological autumn with this update, the end of meteorological summer. Of course, it's all very questionable because the weather doesn't stick to defined periods like this. So you do very often, most years actually, have at least some warm weather, if not hot weather, at some point through September, particularly. So it's just useful when you come to divvying up the statistics at the end of the season, really to have a defined period. And summer is defined as the 1st of June to the 31st of August, with autumn defined as the 1st of September to the 30th of November. But as I say, the weather doesn't stick to those defined definitions. So very often you'll get summer weather continuing way in September. Largely has some very hot weather in September, for example. Nevertheless, this update will almost be taking us, or it does just about take us, to the very start of the autumn. So we'll see what the JMA and the CFS V2 models are showing for the coming month. We're going to start off with the JMA, have a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies, broken down into weekly periods, and then we'll have a look at the CFS V2 and sort of compare the two. So what we begin with here is the North Pole view down. So this is the pole up here, the middle latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere are around there, and the British Isles is just there. Blue is extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure, and orange, yellow and red extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure. The first weekly period takes us from the 4th through to the 11th of August. These are broken down into weekly periods. So we find that for the coming week, we've got an area of below average heights around the UK, particularly to the north and to our east. We've got above average heights in the central part of the Atlantic, and we are on the cool side of a jet stream as well here, doing something a little bit like that with the jet. So it does look quite cool and unsettled, this, for the coming week. Probably bring down a bit of a northerly influence, and you expect showers along with spells of rain because heights are pretty low as well. Then we go through to week 2, which takes us from the 11th through to the 18th of August. And, well, at this point, of course, the shorter range ones that we've been looking at through the week, the GFS and the ECWF, they are indicating high pressure to build up from the Azores and bring us some warmer, drier weather through this middle part of August. But the JMA is actually going for a very unsettled middle part of August. So from the 11th to the 18th, the 500 millibar height anomaly looks like that. And it's below average height still dominating the weather. We have got the Azores high down here, but it's not really getting much further north than sort of Spain and the Bay of Biscay, which leaves us in a fairly strong, or leaves us with a fairly strong jet stream and in a pretty westerly type flow. So you'd expect showers or long spells of rain, or further showers or longer spells of rain, to be heading in from off the Atlantic with those areas of below average heights and low pressure. And overall, that still looks quite disappointing, actually, as we're heading up to the middle part of August. And it is at odds with what the shorter range ECM and GFS models are doing. But I can only go by what the long range models are showing, and this morning the JMA keeps it unsettled at least to the middle part of August. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which takes us from the 18th of August through to the 1st of September, so the very first day of the new month and of autumn. And weaker signals, of course, this is a 2-weekly anomaly, weeks 3 and 4, so always slightly weaker with the signal. What it's doing, it's placing an area of below average heights over Scandinavia, still got that area of above average heights around Spain and going through the Mediterranean. Then otherwise not a great deal to be seen, really. We're probably still bringing in a westerly influence, I would have thought, here. It might be a bit transitional, so maybe week 3 is still relatively unsettled, and then week 4 is something significantly drier. But overall, no strong signal here, even into the second half of August, to be particularly settling things down. At the very least, that will probably still be quite changeable and probably still fairly sort of coolish as well. So no real signal for a prolonged spell of drier, warmer weather, even into the second half of August. But do keep in mind, that's a 2-weekly anomaly, weeks 3 and 4. So, I say, it could always be, it's transitional. The third week might be a continuation of that unsettled pattern. Then the fourth week might be something significantly warmer and drier, or it might be the other way around. So the third week has a drier, warmer spell, and then the fourth week is back to unsettled conditions, something like that. It's always harder to decipher a 2-weekly anomaly compared to a 1-weekly anomaly. So seeing how this stacks up in terms of the temperature and precipitation anomalies for next month from the JMA, we have a look at the tropical and mid-latitude view. So this is the equator just here. See if I can draw a straight line. There we go. And just above it, we've got the sort of tropics of the northern hemisphere. To the south of it, we've got tropics of the southern hemisphere. So northern hemisphere is up here, and southern hemisphere is down here. You can't see the polar region because they're off the chart, but the North Pole, which you're just looking at, of course, the North Pole view down, is up there, and the South Pole is again off the chart down there. That's America just there. This is Asia over here, and this is Europe just here, and the British Isles, most importantly, is in the top right hand corner of the chart as you are looking at it. So now that everybody knows where everyone is, recap of the week 1 500 millibar height anomaly taking us from the 4th to the 11th, and it's unsettled. We've got low pressure below average heights centering itself over the UK, above average heights in the Atlantic, and doing something a bit like that with the jet stream. You expect this to be quite a cool week. That's what model is showing. It's going for temperature anomalies to be cooler than average, quite substantially so, actually. And it's perhaps not quite as unsettled as you might think by the height anomaly, actually. So it is a bit wetter than average still for the northern part of the country. But down in the south, it isn't overly wet. So perhaps not quite as unsettled as a height anomaly would imply, but still changeable and quite cool overall. Week 2, which takes us from the 11th to the 18th, is looking like this. Below average heights again around the UK, bringing the jet stream through the country like that. Above average heights down to the south, but not really doing all that much for us. The precipitation anomaly for that middle part of August is coming out above average, so quite a wet week coming up once again. And the temperature anomaly, it still is cooler than average as well. So if this is right, we're cooler than average at least to the middle part of August. And then weeks 3 and 4, which is the 18th of August to the 1st of September. This one rather more complicated from a height anomaly. Let's see what the temperature and precipitation is doing. So rainfall first of all, and it is a bit of a drying trend here. So Scotland's still a bit wetter than average. Elsewhere, we're shifting onto the slightly drier than average side. Temperature anomalies look like they're staging a little bit of a recovery as well. Although still slightly on the cool and average side for the western part of the country, interestingly. Northern eastern areas, rather oddly, coming out warmer than average, or ever so slightly warmer than average. Bit difficult what's going on there, I think, in that final 2 weeks of August. I've got a feeling there's some sort of transition going on. So I think that week 3 is probably unsettled and still relatively cool. Week 4 may be significantly warmer and drier. It could be the other way around, but I think there is some sort of transition going on there, and that's why the signals overall are pretty weak. Right, so that's the JMA. Let's deal with CFSV2 next. These again, 500 bar heights, broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period taking us from today, the 4th, through to the 10th of August. This is just a perfect representation of what I just saw with the JMA really. Both models are in agreement. Below average heights centering over and slightly to the north and east of the country. Have got some above average heights to our south, to our southeast. This ridge down here is bringing all of that heat that you've been hearing about on the news to many parts of Europe. But for us, we're actually under the influence of a southerly tracking jet stream, and within a trough of low pressure, so the heat, it's down here, and we are within the cooler side of the jet stream and having Atlantic-driven weather. So cool and unsettled, really, for the coming week. We go through to week 2, which is the 11th through to the 17th of August. This is a little bit more like what the models are showing, the shorter range models, ECWF and GFS. So we've got low pressure below average heights out to our north and northwest, but we are strengthening this ridge down to our south. Now, this isn't particularly settled because we are still getting an influence from the jet stream, albeit it's being pushed northwards. But for the south anyway, we are closer to this strengthening area of high pressure, which is an extension from the Azores high, really. We are getting more influence from that. So for the north, probably still unsettled there as we head up into the middle part of August. For the south, I would think that's going to be turning things quite a bit drier and warmer down across the southern parts of the country. As I say, that's more in line with what the shorter range GFS and ECM have been showing over the past few days. Week 3 takes us to the 18th to the 24th of August. Still looking unsettled for the northwest. Can't get rid of that area of below average heights just to our northwest. So low pressures up there. Then we've got this ridge through many parts of Europe. We are very close to having quite a hot and dry spell here, but until we get rid of this low pressure to our northwest, till we get that up to Greenland, really push it up there, we're not going to be able to sustain this ridge for any length of time. So probably still the idea that the jet stream is going through something like that, still plaguing particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland. England and Wales closest to this area of above average heights, probably getting some drier and warmer conditions at times, but never truly settling down until we get to week 4, which takes us from the 25th through to the 31st of August. And now you see what's happened is that the ridge has properly strengthened and pushed northwards. So it's now covering many northern parts of Europe. That area of below average heights is probably penned in here somewhere, doing something a bit like that with the jet stream. And now we will be starting to drag up the air from a southerly, southeasterly direction. So that could be bringing significantly warmer and drier conditions as we head through the latter stages of August. So it takes a long, long time to get there, but eventually summer does return here. With the CFS. I think the JMA is sort of hinting at the same thing as well. Temperature anomalies for the next week, coming out cooler than average from the 4th to the 10th of August. Hardly a surprise given the pattern, and still looking cooler than average through the week 2 anomaly, 11th to the 17th of August, still coming out on the cooler than average side. Week 3 temperature anomalies are showing a bit of a recovery, but overall still a little bit on the cooler than average side. Notice it's very warm across many parts of Europe, and I suspect for the south we would tap in to some of that warmth at times, but it's not really until we get to week 4, the final week, which is the 25th through to the 31st of August, that we begin to see those temperature anomalies going onto the warmer than average side. It does look a hot month, this August, for many, many parts of Europe and the UK. However you want to look at it, we're either very unlucky that we're not tapping into this heat that they're getting over on the continent, or we're lucky, if you don't like the hot weather, we are lucky not to be getting this hot weather. It's very close, actually, to the kind of pattern we had in August 2003, which is our last truly hot August. You may remember it. We got temperatures up to 100 Fahrenheit in Gravesend on, I think, the 10th of August. 2003. We're very close to that kind of pattern, but the Atlantic is, and the jet stream just got too much strength in it to allow that heat to get up towards us. But by the end of August, the models are indicating something quite a lot hotter and drier coming along. Then, of course, by then the heat is beginning to subside over the continent. Having a look at precipitation anomaly finally, so the 4th to the 10th of August coming week, perhaps not quite as unsettled again as you might have expected it to be given the height anomaly, a bit wetter than average for Scotland, otherwise near normal with the rainfall. Week 2 is also looking a little bit wetter than average in the north and west, otherwise again it is close to average with precipitation. Week 3, that one is coming out surprisingly perhaps a little bit wetter than average across all parts of the country. And then week 4, this looks like the best week of the month, where it turns, not only does it turn warmer, it also turns drier than average as well in week 4. So we end August on a warm and dry note. Otherwise, there's a lot of changeable weather in between. But I don't think it's too bad to the south, actually, with the CFS, because that ridge is very close to southern parts of the country and would, I assume, be bringing some drier and warmer conditions at times. Now, I have to say, it's all a little bit at odds with what the shorter range models are doing, because the ECMWF and the JMA and the ECMWF and the GFS are very keen to build that ridge up from the Azores as early as around a week's time. Really. So, I'm not sure how much confidence we can have in today's JMA Friday. I think it's just going to be a case of watching this space. They do eventually get there, but it doesn't get there until the sort of last stages of the month. I've got a feeling the ridge might be a little bit more a little bit stronger than these long-range ones are predicting, and we may go in the end with the GFS and ECM predictions, which is for ridging to be in place by the middle part of the month. So I suggest that's most likely, and these longer-range models are just a little bit too weak with that ridge from the Azores. But we'll keep an eye on it and see what's happening. We'll have weekend forecast coming up for you tomorrow, of course, and that will tell us whether we're going to get this ridge building up from the Azores at the end of next week. Right, as ever, long-range forecasting is always unreliable, so don't take anything that you see in this update too seriously. It's a snapshot of what these two models are showing today. They might look very different next week. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.